Okay, so this is a 2011 BMW X3 F25 chassis with the 3-liter turbo diesel. It's an N57. There is a coolant leak, but from looking above here, I couldn't see any leak. So I've taken the undercover out already, so I can see some liquid there, and also if I look there, that's the oil filter housing. That's where it's leaking from. Okay, so this piece we just lift up from here and here, and that comes out. Next, we disengage this piece from this piece. So this thing here, we just press down and pull back. So that releases that. And this one here is the same thing. We press down on this, and that disengages it from this clip, and that just separates. And then I have to remove this piece first. So that piece has been, I've just removed that to lift this out. And now I'm just going to leave it attached, so it's just easier to take it. So there's the oil filter housing there, with the various cooling parts next attached to it, and you can see the leak. Now before I do anything else, I'm going to disconnect the battery, because that's a positive connection there, so I'll disconnect the battery first. Okay, so this is the boot of the car. The battery is under here, so I'll just get this out of the way. So here, I'm just turning this 90 degrees. So there's the battery. So I'm going to disconnect the negative terminal, which is this one here. Okay, so I'm underneath the car now, so I can't find a drain plug for this radiator, so I think I'm going to have to disconnect this hose here. This is on the left side of the car, so I'll just disconnect that to drain the coolant before I do anything else. Okay, so that's draining now, and when I first put out that hose, it didn't drain at all, so I opened the lid of the reservoir, and now it's draining. So I've got that open, which allowed the coolant to drain out, and now this whole thing here is held together by, or bolted to the engine with 6 bolts. There's 5 that's easily accessible, but there's 1 that's right in there underneath these holes here. I'm hoping I can actually unscrew it, because I don't want to take this whole piece apart just to get access to that 1 screw. So what I'll do now is while the coolant is draining, I'm just gonna clean off as much as I can around here before I can start disconnecting, and I'll take this piece out first, and then there's a piece after that before I get to the actual oil filter housing. Okay, so the coolant has drained now, so I disconnected this hose by just pulling. There's a little metal thing here that you just pull up, and that comes out. And down here, I'm going to do the same thing to that hose. There's a little metal clip that you just pull up, and then you pull the hose out. And also, there was a wire connector here that attached to the side. You just use a little screwdriver and just pry it out, and that just comes out. Once I've done that, I should be able to remove this whole unit here that holds the oil filter housing. I removed 6 screws, The hardest one to get out was the one I can't show it on camera here, but it's if you follow this tube, it's right behind in there. It was a real pain to get out, but these are the 6 screws that came out. So I've got that whole unit out now, but obviously I forgot there were 2 more holes underneath that I have to unhook, so I've got to get under the car and do that now. Okay, so I've got the housing out. So here's the plate with the gasket. I'm just pulling it out. So this is it there. Hopefully I've got the right piece. So here's the housing. The pipe that I forgot to undo before I took it out was this part here, which is underneath. It was held together with one bolt, and 2 pipes you just force it out. So you could actually buy this whole unit as a set, but the leak was from this gasket, and while I've got it out, I've bought a whole set of new gasket to replace. There's some in here and some in here as well, so I'll just take this apart and clean it up and put all the various new gasket in. Okay, so I've got this piece out. There were 6 screws, 4 long ones and 2 short ones. The short ones are this one here and this one here. I actually use a torque wrench, and I put the torque down to 10, and then I try to adjust it, and when it clicks I know that it's at that torque, and I kept increasing the torque on this until it actually moves without, you know, clicking. So I got it to 11 Newton meters, so that means when I tighten them, I'm going to tighten them at 11 Newton meters. So there's 4 rubber gaskets here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll replace those. So when I took out these old gasket, I placed them here exactly how I took them out. So because of all these different knobs, or what do you call it, bits around here on the inside, so when I put them in place, they're exactly in the same rotation. And I've also put a bit of a coolant, just rub it around here. I've cleaned this surface, and now I'm going to put it back. So next I'll take out this layer. I've already unscrewed one here and one here, and then another screw here. I'll take this piece out, and there's another set of gasket under here. So I've put the new gasket here, and I've also cleaned this surface, so I'm gonna put this back in now. So I put this piece back, and I've tightened the center bolt to 12 Newton meters, and I've only hand tightened this one and this one, and I'm gonna put the next piece up before I tighten, because I actually go all around here, so they all get tightened at the same level all around. Okay, so I'll put this back now. I've tightened it to 11 Newton meters. I did the star pattern, so very evenly distributing the force as we're tightening this down. So it's 11 Newton meters all around. Now the next set of gasket is actually in between in here, so I've got to take out this plate. So there's 2 screws. There's one here and one here. So with the 2 screws undone, I just take this out, and now there are 2 rubber washers. This one here is totally flat, so I think this is where it's also leaking from. This one looks okay, but the kit comes with both, so I'm going to replace them both. Okay, so I've got the new rubber gasket in now, so I'm just going to put this in. This is all cleaned, both sides, and I just put this in place. and I'll tighten it with these 2 screws, and I think this is just to hold this in place before we mount it onto the engine. So this is not going to be very tight, this is just purely to hold this in place. Okay, I'm about to put the new gasket in now. So there are these 2 little knobby things here that goes one here and one here. That's just to guide and hold it in place. This one, I've actually put a bit of oil just to help it slide in. So that's how it should go. So when this goes into the car, so there's 6 screws. The hardest one to put into is this one. This is the hardest one, because there's a tube that comes out like that in the way. Okay, so before I put that in place, at the bottom there's these holes here. That's the one I forgot to take out when I unscrewed all the bolts for the oil filter housing. So this goes underneath of the unit, which is back here. I've just blocked that off with some paper towel. So I'm going to put it in place now. So I've got it in place now, so all 6 screws are in. I've tightened them in opposite sequence or star order just to make sure that it goes down evenly. I've tightened them down to 20 Newton meters. I've connected this hose and that one there, and I've also reconnected the hose underneath the radiator. So it's time to top up the coolant.